when I ask you a question, my questions will not be any part of the video. So
Okay.
you need to refer back to the
What the question was, okay.
to what the question was in order for your statement to make sense.
Right.
And not be out of, thin air.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
17.
Yeah, yeah, you need to say, I was in Rotary for 17 years, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And don't refer to me in any way, when I knew Barbara, or when Barbara and I were in the club together, or Barbara did this, or don't refer to me in any way, or your club, none of that. Just like I'm a person, instead of knowing me forever, you don't know me at all. So that's what we're gonna do, and it's just relaxed, and we're just gonna move on.
Okay.
We're gonna start, Bill, by asking you, what Rotary Club are you in, and how long have you been in that club?
Okay. I'm in the Rotary Club of Morehead City Noon, and I joined in 1983. My best friend, Pat Osmond, or childhood friend, Pat Osmond, invited me, and I met a lot of nice people there, and so I sort of stayed in it.
Excellent, that's wonderful. Bill, I'm very interested in the international projects of Rotary, the global projects that you've been involved in. Can you just start with the earliest one you might have been involved in, and then come up to the one you're working with now?
When I first joined, I thought probably local projects would be the thing. I envisioned raising money for high school scholarships, and that would be fun. Of course, at that time I was recently out of school myself, and we did for a couple of years. And then one of our presidents, Ted Hagler, asked me to host a Rotary Group Study Exchange, which was business people from Sweden, in this case, who came to the Morehead City area. And I didn't do much pre-planning, so I took off the week and toured them around and really had a great time with them. I hadn't thought much about the international aspect of Rotary prior to that. So since that time, the international projects have been interesting to me. I've done things like on vacation in Aruba, met a Rotarian, went to the hospital there and toured the hospital in Aruba with him. I saw an old folks home in the Caribbean on another trip. We've been to Rotary International conventions and met people from other countries and enjoyed our time with them and seen things that we probably wouldn't have otherwise seen. We then started to get interested in projects, been involved in donating money to help a floating hospital in Bangladesh, because we had an exchange student from Bangladesh, and so we wanted to honor him, and so we helped that in his home country. We also had an exchange student from France, and she stayed with us for about 6 months. Recently, last year in fact, we visited France and went to Paris, and then went to see Esther, our exchange student, and saw her family, her children, who are now almost the age she was when she visited with us. So that was just great. It gives you more insight into just local people in another country. Most recently, we've been involved in trying to set up an international project to help in Mexico. We went to a small town, Chacala, which has about 400 residents. My wife and I and a couple other members of my club went, looked around, stayed 3 or 4 days, ate at the couple restaurants that were there, and met with some local leaders. They didn't really have an organized Rotary Club at that time. I think now they have organized, but they didn't have any organization, just some local leaders, and they outlined what they'd like, primarily help with education. Their schools are provided by the government, but according to your population in a town of 400 doesn't get much. So they had one private school, which if you could afford it, that's really where you sent your children. And then they had the public schools, which really weren't well equipped. We also visited the hospitals there and clinics and saw just how the people lived in that part of Mexico. It's on the west coast. It's above Puerto Vallarta, but like I say, just a small 400 person town, a small village really, right on the Pacific Ocean. A very pretty place, really nice place to vacation, but probably not so great to live. They're just limited in what they have. So coming back, we talked to their club, and we've had a couple more members visit this winter. And we've put together a project right now that we're going to donate 3 buses to help a technical school get the students to the school. They pay about 50 cents a day otherwise to travel, and 50 cents here might not be that bad, but in Mexico that's fairly costly for these kids trying to go to a technical college. So 3 more buses would help them form a bus route where they could pick up the students and bring them to the technical school. And then we're also going to outfit about 9 classrooms. There were classrooms where they didn't have desks for all the students. Frequently they didn't have enough chairs for all the students. And these are youngsters, 6, 7, 8, 10 years old, and being ill-equipped. A little money from here can go a long way in Mexico. We get the Rotary Club in Mexico, in that area, to promise to donate, to oversee the project, to make sure the material gets there and where it's put, and that it's being used for what we say it's going to be used for. If they donate some money, we match their money, and then Rotary International matches that money. And without a whole lot of trouble, you come up with a pretty good sum that can do a lot in a third world country, Mexico. That area of Mexico being essentially third world. A little money goes a long way. And so I think that's going to be really fun. The other interesting part of it is more and more recently, these Rotary Global grants have tried to be a two-way street. And so we've started some talking about maybe them coming to Morehead City and thinking about maybe a handicap playground or something that we don't have here that they could help us put together, so that we would have given to Chicala and Chicala would give to Morehead City. So it's really interesting. And you find out that everybody is concerned with the same things, doing very much the same things on an international basis. We aren't as different as we sometimes think we are.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. You've been a leader as a district governor. How did it feel leaving Carteret County and working with people all over our district in southeastern North Carolina?
Right. Being a district governor allowed me to travel around and meet people in some fairly small Rotary clubs as well as some of the large ones. Learning the history of Rotary sort of coming up in the 20s and really spreading around in the 30s. It seemed to follow the train tracks through eastern North Carolina, going from small town to small town, or what now are sometimes very small towns. But again, everybody does a little bit different things. Their interests are a little bit local, but then the overall arching unity with us is that we're doing good in the world and trying to help others. We've internationally tried to eradicate polio. We're still working on that, but we've made major strides through the past years with it, and every club is committed to that. So you have your own local differences, how they fundraise, how their meetings are conducted, but then we have several things that are common, and they're common because they're just what Rotary does.
Address polio a little bit, because I know you were chair of polio for a while. What was your experience with polio, and why do you think that's important in one of the key parts of Rotary?
Yeah. Since about 1984, Rotary's been involved in trying to eradicate polio. One reason they picked polio is that it's a preventable disease. You can get an immunization and you pretty much will not get polio. And when they started, most every nation in the world had some cases of polio every year. Debilitating disease. We see a lot usually in India, where they had rampant polio cases and many people were left paralyzed without any way to make an income. Rotary has stepped in and given the shots and also the drops to children to decrease the incidence of polio, and we're down to just 2 countries now that have wild, they call it a polio that's not induced by some other problem. And that has really helped the number of people that were disabled from polio. People say, well, what next? What do you do after you cure polio or after you eradicate it? It's like smallpox. We don't have cases of smallpox now. We hope that soon there'll be a world where we don't have cases of polio. we won't have the neurologic consequences of polio. And that's certainly possible. It's just a matter of getting drops into all these children's mouths. And that takes an effort and time, but we're being very successful with that. And it's something everyone can get behind.
Have you traveled to share in the polio eradication?
My wife and I went to India with Nancy Barbie, who's a local Rotarian in our district. Went to an area, Dhambad in India, which is a large city, a couple million. Never heard of it probably. It's north of Calcutta, near Nepal. We went out to an area where they had an orphanage, and we put drops in babies' mouths there. It was almost like a circus coming to town when we said, this is National Immunization Day, come to this school, bring your children, and you'll get the polio vaccine. And people just lined up, and there were 10 or 15 of us giving the drops. And it was great. They saturate the children with polio drops. They come through, sometimes come through twice. It doesn't harm them to get a double dose, but they knew the importance of it because they could still see people hobbling about or crawling about who'd had polio and lost the ability to walk or to move about very well. It was eye-opening to see those cases. There's not a lot you can do. It's a damaging disease. Once you lose the ability to walk, you're not going to gain that ability again. And so seeing that, which we don't see in the United States now since the 50s, we've not had many cases of polio. And so we don't think about it. And Rotary picked that up and showed us here's something that we can fix and really make a difference in the world.
Is there a partnership involved with the polio program in Rotary?
Yeah, the polio program is involved with WHO and several international groups that help support it, help you get into countries where otherwise the United States coming in or another country coming in, even though they're Rotarians and meeting other Rotarians, sometimes that's a little politically difficult. And so these other organizations help with that. It's been cheaper to provide the polio drops because it's on such a scale, the number of people involved, and it also sometimes provides jobs for people in these third world countries to go out and survey for polio and give the polio drops themselves.
How is the money maximized, like the Gates Foundation?
Yeah, the monies that we raise to try to eradicate polio have been matched usually by the Gates Foundation and others. Rotary has money from people donating in Rotary clubs. We have Paul Harris Fellows, where if you give $1,000 or more, you get recognition, not much of an award, but recognition. And that money then is available at the international level to help with projects like this. And for 20 years now, polio, maybe more, 30 years, polio has been a thing that this Rotary International money has gone to.
Excellent. I know you've been in, a long time and with one club. What is your best memory? What's the thing you're most proud of or most attached to when it comes to Rotary?
Probably the thing that I think being a Rotarian has done for me is making connection when I go elsewhere, particularly international. You can go to a Rotary club and even though they may not speak the same language, sort of what's going on, you're familiar with it, you're accepted, and it has open doors to visit places and see things that I might not otherwise have done. Every club's different, and there are different cultural aspects to it, but still it's Rotary, and they recognize you and accept you as you're a Rotarian from somewhere else. Generally, they're interested in what are you doing to raise funds and how does your club work, and you come back sometimes picking up things that their club does that yours can do now. So that's been fun. It's been interesting to see clubs in other places. When you go places, you'll maybe see a sign, the Rotary donated these wheelchairs for your use, or Rotary Club helped build this building or put this up. And so that makes you sort of proud too that you're a part of a club locally that also works internationally.
Wow, I think you said so much. I knew you would be excellent at saying, but,
it's many years of being in Rotary.
That's true. Well, but not everybody can tap into it, like you do, but your experience has been marvelous. Because this is a key Rotarian, Bill or Bob, does this bring up any questions for you?
Four-way test. How's that affected your life? Tell her.
Yeah. Well, the four-way test we say every week is it the truth, is it fair to all concerned, will it build goodwill and better friendships, will it be beneficial to all concerned. One of the first things they ask you to learn, or when I joined, they asked you to learn that, commit it to memory, and to use it in everything you did. It's hard. Is it the truth? Starts off, and okay, and what I'm doing, what I'm saying, is it truthful? But it's certainly something that's beneficial to keep in mind all the time. The story with it was that it turned around a company in the 30s, an aluminum company that was going bankrupt, and they set out those 4 principles and said, we're going to do this. And so it works. It's certainly basic tenets that most any religion or any other group can follow. So it's not exclusive to Rotary or exclusive to the United States. And that's been influential. It's something we strive to live up to.
Rotary is truly international, and when you go to the International Convention, you find that out. It's every religion, every culture, every possible way of thinking and acting
Right.
that humanity expresses, you see in Rotary. So we, while we express it our way here in Carter County, it might be expressed differently in Chicago or San Francisco, and definitely in India or Africa. So that's just a moment about the international flavor of Rotary that you've experienced.
I also see it as a sort of a flat pyramid of hierarchy or leadership. You can go to a meeting maybe in Raleigh and meet the international president of Rotary. And there are only 2 or 3 levels of offices from the regular member to the president of the group. And that's impressive, I guess, that you're meeting this person who's known to all other Rotarians and meet them on a personal level. Several international conventions and traveling internationally exposes you to this core of people who are leaders in Rotary. And it's not very hard to meet them and talk with them and find out what they're doing. And that's interesting, amazing, I guess. You say, well, here's the guy on the front of the magazine for Rotary this month, and I know him. I saw him in Raleigh.
Well, is there anything else that this is capturing the voices of Rotary from Carter County for posterity, what the 100 years of Rotary here have been like, and the foundation for the next 100 years. Do you have anything I haven't asked you about that you'd like to share about Rotary and to let people know about your Rotary experience?
Rotary early let me meet a lot of people who were leaders in the community that I probably would not have met or known as well otherwise. And I cherish the memories of a lot of them, several of them no longer with us. But to have known them and been around them and heard their stories and what they had done, that was always intriguing. I knew Bill Conde, who was the chief of police, for one. And it's not someone I would have talked to probably otherwise, but was just, again, a great storyteller. I knew Fred Odell at the hospital. He was the president of the hospital, but I probably knew him better as a Rotarian rather than at work. And several of the people, Dr. Ewer, Darden Ewer, always used to sing, "Let Me Call You Sweetheart," when women came to his Rotary Club. You might not do that nowadays, but he did that, and that was him, and it's just great to know that. Great to have been involved in that. And so I really did meet some people who were prominent in Morehead City and were prominent in our Rotary clubs, and I'm glad I got the opportunity to do it.
Thank you, Bill. That's wonderful. I knew you would speak well to it, and you certainly have. I appreciate you coming over here. We've known each
Okay.
other a long time, but getting this codified, getting this
This is
into a
great.
digital format where it can be shared all over.
Yeah.
Our experience here in Carteret County is the same as Rotary around the world, and yet it's different.
That's right.
And we before we lose any more voices,
True.
we want to get it in. People have shared the name of Albert Gaskell and
Yeah.
Harvey Jocelyn and Sonny Gear, and the names just keep
They do.
flowing. And
Yeah,
I did know Albert Gaskell. I did meet him. I knew Harvey, from church here, but these voices are lost.
Yeah.
They're gone. Even I know John T has been.
right.
There's
Spoken about.
10,000 ways that he's been recognized, in magazines and videos and everything. We are capturing little by little their names here
Yeah.
that we're capturing. Pat Osmond was
Yeah,
discussed, and by doing this, we're getting it. We're getting the 100 years, and then we can build on it. But if you lose it, so we're
Never
gonna
hear
try
it.
to do this video and try to do a book too.
Yeah.
But
Albert told me he always at Chapel Hill. I don't know for how many years, but he had never been west of Newbern when he first went to Chapel Hill as a freshman. And then he stayed at Chapel Hill for probably 20 years. But he knew everybody who'd ever been at Chapel Hill, all these names that would come up. There were people whose names on a building. Well, he knew them. Albert.
Before we let you go, will you look at the camera, say your name, then spell your name?
Okay. I'm Bill Walker, Billwalker. Bill
Perfect.
Walker.
All right, before you get up or go away, I want to just double